Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. My name is Liza Martinez, and I just graduated from the College of Global Public Health with a master in public health, and I was born and raised in Colombia, and I moved to the United States 10 years ago, and this summer I went back to my country to do fellowship with the Gallatin Human Rights Fellowship. Okay, so there I did in Colombia, I did research to understand issues of access to adequate diagnosis tools and medicines for individuals at risk of mercury poisoning in the gold mining zones. With this, I wanted to understand how the right to health of those individuals is being protected and fulfilled, or rather violated, by the state of Colombia. During 9 weeks, I worked with the Environment and Human Rights Research Group of the School of Law at the Universidad del Rosario, along with Professor Leonardo Guiza, the director of the group. And the mission of this group is to inform knowledge through the collection and publication of data related to the legal aspects of the effects of gold mining activities and the environment, and how those affect the rights of the individuals. Colombia. Colombia is a middle-income country with a population of about 48 million people, and it has the fourth largest GDP in Latin America. However, its health expenditure is only 3.5% of the GDP, which is low even compared with less economically developed countries in Latin America. Colombia is one of the countries with the highest levels of inequality in the world, as measured by the World Bank Gini coefficient, and its legal system is very sophisticated, but that itself does not translate in individuals trusting in the government or sympathizing with the bureaucratic law system. The national government has long struggled to have authority over its individuals, and this picture shows two places, Bogota, and behind you can see the palace where the president lives, and that's the right, and on the left, people on the small villages, on the rural areas, they just have to do laundry. This is something I encounter when I visit the space. Right, so in terms of economic development, the country holds one of the biggest gold natural resources in Latin America, and the exploitation of gold has increased exponentially since 2003, when the price of gold in the global market reached the $1,000 per ounce threshold. So before the decade of 2000, the gold industry was not a priority for the national government, and historically, small-scale gold mining was not used as a means of economic development, and the traditional miners practiced gold mining as a secondary activity that supplemented their farming and cattle raise activities. So there is evidence of the use of mercury in gold mining even before the pre-colonial era, but the quantities used in that activity were very small, and the damage to the environment was never recorded, or I couldn't find that. But with the increase of the gold price in the market, things have changed over the last decade, and the number of gold miners and the quantities of mercury imported to be used in gold mining have increased exponentially. And because gold mining is a legal activity during the last decade, drug dealers have seen it as an opportunity to launder money, and they have this is something that is happening, that they are buying gold mines with very little production, and they are reporting them as highly active. So that's a economic issue that they are facing also. And besides the drug dealers, the guerrilla armed groups such as the ELN also have been involved in the gold mining activities as a means of financing their activities. So when these two illegal groups entered the picture, the lifestyle of the traditional artisanal small-scale gold miners started to change, and they nowadays are being displaced by these illegal groups, and they are also becoming victims of several types of scams and many issues. So due to these problems with the idea of legalizing the gold mining activities and have authority over the territories, government enacted a law that required gold miners have a license or a legal title in 2014. But despite the efforts, 80% of the gold miners in the country are still considered illegal. And this that you are seeing here is the current landscape of the gold mining activities. And as you can see, criminal gold mining still is permeates the legal gold mining activities. It's a little bit puzzling, I would say. So, what that's the problem that I encountered. So, how can we use the human rights framework? So one of the main tasks of my research was to understand the problem itself, and I interviewed many stakeholders from UNIDO, experts, officers of the ombudsman, toxicologists, nurses, people who live in the areas where small scale gold mining is practiced, but uh, interviewing or talking, having access to small scale gold miners was very out of my scope, let's say, because nowadays they are considered illegal. So I made myself busy listening to the stories that I heard from different angles about the accessibility to diagnostic and treatment methods for those who are exposed to mercury. And this was the first time for me to do research using a legal framework. And as I was advancing in my project, I started to understand that the human rights framework is already being used by the affected communities to bind the national government to provide reparations for the violations they are being victims of. So I spent most of my time in Bogota because of security reasons, but I managed to travel to a town in the Cauca region called Santander de Quilichao with a USAID mission. And one of the most contaminated areas with mercury in the country is located in that small town. The name of that place is Buenos Aires, and we visited the local area, and the legal representative of the African descendant community that lives in Buenos Aires told me about the struggles that this minority group have encountered to force the government to protect their rights, and how using the legal tools that have been designed to protect the individual's rights have helped them to claim reparations to the state in the past. So I wanted to show you the comparison of these two pictures. On the left is an illegal mine, and this is something that we encounter um, at random. It was unexpected for us to get there, and when I got there, I was thinking, well, the damage is not that bad. As you can see, there is still foliage and just a little bit of a lump of dirt. But when you see the picture from the air, you can see that the damage is irreversible, and the vegetation is being swiped off. The water in those areas is contaminated, and it will not be clean in our lifetime, and the health of these individuals is really highly at risk. So since I already said, yeah, they are using a legal framework, human rights legal framework, to try to protect themselves and deal with the state. In terms of access to health services, that are ideal to diagnose and treat mercury poisoning, I found that very little is possible in these small villages. And I want to clarify this: in Colombia, there is the equipment to make a mercury poisoning diagnosis, and the medicines to treat it are available, but the equipment required to do those diagnoses, that is in Bogota, in Cali, Cartagena, the big cities, and that's far from these small villages. And besides that, for example, to diagnose mercury poisoning, you can do it by blood or by hair, but the cost of this test is approximately 15% of one minimum wage salary, and and since those exams are not covered under the national health plan, the individuals living in the affected zones are not having access to them. So the more I understood, So the more I understood the problem, the more I understood the need for a legal framework and the benefit of using individuals' rights in this case. So claiming for the respect, protection, and fulfillment of the rights of the individuals affected by the health effects of mercury is opening the way to public health research and interventions. So there is a lot of work to do. The communities, they really need the support on what they are already doing and to protect their environment and their water. And so I am looking for opportunities that allow me to continue the research project, and specifically here in NYU, I'm trying to create awareness of this issue. And really, this fellowship gave me the opportunity to develop my skills, have a hands-on experience, and get passionate about the problem. And looking into the future, I would love to really put all this into practice in real settings. And with that, I want to say thank you to Dean Wofford and Vasuki and Professor Carranza and everybody who helped us, Kim and Allison. And well, thank you so much.